morning, it's Barbara. Oh, the sun is finally out here. It was foggy this morning. Good morning, it's Barbara. Thank you for joining me for coffee. It is kind of lovely out here now. It was foggy when I woke up this morning, but that's all burned off. Dennis says there is a chance of rain today, but I'm going to be watering, and I think I've said that for the last 2 days, right? I had it in my mind I was going to water on Tuesday, and it's Thursday. And pretty soon these are going to be all wilty, and then I'm going to feel like a jerk. I also have to water my forsythia. So, anyway, it is kind of lovely out here. I'm wearing my arcade sweater by Isabel Kramer and my wool t-shirt underneath, because I think I'm going to be taking my sweater off because I think it's going to be warmer later. Oh, yeah. I spent quite a bit of time on my deck yesterday reading. Dennis was smoking his bacon on the deck, and so it smelled delicious, you know, because he uses those different kinds of wood chips to flavor. I don't know what he was doing. I should have asked him. It might have been hickory, might have been apple. I'm not sure, but it smelled really good. So I guess that means he's likely to be slicing up freshly smoked bacon today or tomorrow. But I read yesterday, I did some executoring things yesterday and sat outside. I've done a tiny bit of knitting. I can show you, but you won't be able to tell. Got some pretty, see, now I probably just turned that inside out. I did that. I turned it inside out when it was much smaller, and I had to close up the hole. And I mean, because of the pattern that I'm using, which is the same on both sides, I was fine, but I had to close up a hole. And I haven't told you this for a while, but this is Trilogy yarns in the Glamorous base, which is an 80/20 merino nylon, and it's unicorn farts. I bought 2 skeins of it, but I think I will not be using both skeins for this. I originally had thought I was going to do a rectangular shawl, and then I changed my mind and I'm doing a cowl. And the cowl is going to be 1 skein. So I will have an extra skein of unicorn farts. But I'm really enjoying the yarn, I have to say. Oh, look at me. I'm sitting here knitting on my cowl when I'm talking to you. I don't usually do that. That's a Leslie kind of thing to do. Sending healing thoughts to everybody. We have people with procedures coming up. We have COVID victims. We have all kinds of things in our community, and I am sending my most healing thoughts. I am really, really ready for 2025, because 2024 has been pretty horrible. And while I understand that It has nothing to do with a calendar. And starting the new year is a very artificial thing. Just feels like it might help. You know what I mean? Reset. It'll be like, feel like a little bit of a reset. So anyway. Pearl, where's your Frisbee? Pearl has lost her Frisbee. It's probably in the yard somewhere. Go find your Frisbee. Dennis will throw it for you. She's giving you that quizzical shepherd look. But anyway. So I will be working on my executoring today. Can pull things together. I have to come up with an estimate of the value. We're going to have the farm appraised, and I have to come up with an estimate of the value of everything aside from the farm, because we're going to have to pay taxes, and we need to know the approximate size of the estate. So I will be working on that today. I couldn't find anything that I really wanted to read yesterday since I've given up on the Fern Michaels stuff. I did, 14 books or something. That's a lot for me. So, I don't feel like I'm dissing Fern Michaels. But I picked up a couple books I had read before, and they were not satisfying. And, so I put on Netflix last night, and I found a series called Monsieur Spade, and it's the story of Sam Spade of the Maltese Falcon fame. Dashiell Hammett's character ends up in southern France, married to a French woman. And then, because he's like retired, and then he gets, a local murder takes place and he is involved in it. And Clive Owen is playing Sam Spade. Now, Clive Owen is a cutie, was a cutie. He's old now. Not bad looking, but he's not the cutie he used to be. None of us are, right? Plays Sam Spade. Now, Clive Owen is British. But his accent is pretty good. Sometimes, especially like in the Hercule Poirot's, they would have British actors and actresses playing Americans, and as an American, it's a little bit funny to listen to them and their accents, and it's hard to determine. Christy thinks that ours are wrong. I'm not sure exactly, but it's very clear they're not native speakers of American English. But Clive Owen, can't tell. I can't tell. I'm pretty sure he's British, but you wouldn't know it, him playing Sam Spade. Anyway, I watched a couple of those, and I enjoyed them. I think there are 6 episodes, so I have a couple more I can watch, and maybe work on my knitting. I am going to be continuing this until I'm done with this ball of yarn. And then I am going to be done with this. And then I guess I'm going to take up my Montrealer, because I do anticipate wanting to have that come winter. Just, doing a little bit of knitting. I think my problem is when I was a knitter with a capital K, I was knitting a lot, as some of you know. And so in my mind, just picking up something and knitting on it for an hour feels wimpy. But it's silly because, of course, there's no reason not to just pick something up for an hour and knit it. And when you're done, stop feeling like knitting, then you stop knitting. It's a perfectly reasonable way to be a knitter, but it's so contrary to my previous knitting existence that it feels very strange and wrong. And these are all things that I'm working on. I have this critical voice in my head that has all kinds of opinions about so many ridiculous things. It's really starting to dawn on me that I do this a lot. Let me just count. Time for me to switch. I'm switching. I'm doing 4 rows of 2x2 rib, and then I just switch and do 4 rows of 2x2 rib the other way. So I will be purling into the knits and knitting into the purls this one row, and if I can remember to do that throughout the whole row, then I will have switched my pattern. And you can tell that my pattern, well, if you could see it, which you can't really, my pattern is exactly the same, looks exactly the same on one side or the other, which I like. In fact, I should do a whole shawl like this, because I really dislike shawls that are obvious in their good side and, bad side. Not bad, but you know what I mean. But anyway, back to this voice in my head. For a long time, I thought it was my mother. My mother was my voice in my head. And that is not true any longer. And for the longest time, I was really reacting to this voice in my head that I thought was my mother. And then I realized that it was my mother as seen by a 12-year-old daughter, as remembered as an adult, like as if she was talking to me, but when I was 12. And I don't know where that age came from in my mind, but that's what it was. And then I realized that my 12-year-old self did not know my mother very well. And the things I thought I knew about my mother turned out to be not really very true. This 12-year-old self got a lot of things wrong. And so it's interesting, so this is, I'm still evolving. I no longer think of this voice in my head or, whatever you want to call it, as my mother. I've stopped that because I recognized that was never correct, really. But as I'm going through this process lately and grieving and trying to figure out how to grieve and watching myself grieve and critiquing myself as in my grief, I've come to realize I just have all these judgy opinions about myself and about stupid things like, why do I feel like it's not okay to just pick up my knitting and knit for an hour and put it down because I'm tired of knitting? Because my old knitter self never got tired of knitting. But now I do. And somehow I got to reset things that it's okay. And I'm finding more and more things like that. Well, it was very obvious to me in the past weeks, when I've just not understood my own reaction to the tragedies that have occurred to me in my life in the last month, 2 months. I'm sort of watching myself from the outside, trying to figure out why are my expectations of what I would feel. I mean, it never occurred to me to think about that ahead of time, so let's be real. But looking back, saying, this is what has happened to me this summer. Why am I acting the way I'm acting? Or why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? And it's so weird, to step back and say, it is what it is, and it's okay, but there's some expectations. I have these weird expectations that I'm starting to recognize in all kinds of areas, including friggin' knitting. So I'm a lot judgier than I want to be about myself, but probably about other people too. I mean, surely I'm not just bringing judgments just to myself. So, really working on trying to not be so judgy. Really gonna work on that because I don't like it. I don't like it. It's okay to knit for an hour. It's okay to feel my feels the way exactly I'm feeling it. Have I always been this judgy? I guess I'm asking people who have known me for a long time. Anyway. So, I'm allowing myself to just knit for an hour if that's what I feel like. I'm going to finish this row and then I'm going to stop knitting. But I hope I feel like knitting my Montrealer because I know I really want to own my Montrealer, you know. But I was talking to Dennis about it. He says, well, you know, maybe you have enough sweaters. I have a lot of sweaters. I have more sweaters than most normal people have. And my mother, a decade ago, maybe not quite, asked me how many sweaters did I think I need. I told her, I don't know, Mama, but when I figure it out, I'll let you know. I guess my mother never really had a crafty hobby. She tried things that she, you know, was interested in for one reason or another. She came back from Norway, visiting in Norway, and tried rosemalling, which is a kind of painting that's Norwegian or Scandinavian. And she did, you know, one thing, I think. And another time she came back from Norway and did a kind of a needlework, needlepoint thing. She made a pillow, I think. Was very beautiful, but she only did one. So she would try these things because she liked the product and she was engaged by the Norwegianness of them. But she sewed, but I never got the impression that she was sewing as a hobby. She was sewing as a practical matter. She sewed when I was a kid. We were poor and she made, that was back in the day when making clothes was cheaper than buying them. Those days are gone. But I don't recall her ever sewing just for the joy of the crafting as kind of as a hobby or an art. So I don't think, you know, I don't think my mother got it that the knitting of the sweaters was as much about the knitting as it was about the sweaters. That wasn't something that was in her. Hey, Pop, I got Maisie here. She was a reader, my mother. And she was a writer. She wrote textbooks, but she also wrote some fiction. She had one story published. She took a class with John Barth, who was a minor writer celebrity at one time. And she had a story published in the Southwest Review that she had written in that class. And she had some desire to be a writer. In fact, she wrote a mystery story. She wanted to set a series of mysteries at the farm / winery in that area. And she wrote the first one, January Thaw. But she never got a person who helps you with those, an agent. She never got an agent, even though she already had a publisher because she had published textbooks. But she, that's a different kind of publisher than Publishers Fiction. She never got an agent. I don't know how hard she really tried. But she and I went to a writing conference together in New York City many, many years ago. Oh, we also went to a mystery writing conference in Florida many, many years ago. Harlan Coben, we met Harlan Coben there, and he wasn't, at that point, I think he was just starting out. So that's how long ago it was. It was at least 20 years ago. That was fun. The most memorable thing about that was I think it was probably the NRA hosted an event at a shooting range, because this was all mystery writers, and the gun manufacturers, all the gun manufacturers got together and put together this shooting event. And these mystery authors, and wannabes like me, went to this shooting event, and we shot all kinds of pistols and such. They were all handguns, I think. I'm not remembering anything that wasn't a handgun. Because of course oops, I think I kept doing the opposite there, but I shouldn't have to back up. That's what happens when you knit and talk at the same time. But anyway, it was really interesting. All these different handgun manufacturers were there to talk about their handguns, and we were encouraged and able to shoot these handguns. They gave us a little safety lesson and beforehand, so that we didn't shoot anybody by accident. And we got to shoot all different kinds of guns. I shot one big gun, I don't remember what it was, but fire came out. Fire actually came out of the end of the gun when I shot it. I was like, okay. It was a big, heavy gun. I mean, it wouldn't have been any kind of a reasonable gun for a detective, private detective, or even a bad guy in your book to have used. And I don't think that they were necessarily encouraging you to figure out what kind of gun you wanted your bad guy to use. They wanna have your special private eye or spy or whatever use their cool gun. Like 007 uses a Walther, some kind of Walther something gun, and if you read mysteries and those spy books and everything, they often talk about the guns that they're using and why they like that gun better than some other gun, So anyway, that was a very interesting event. It was fun. I'm an American, shooting off handguns was fun to me. And of course, usually, and they were very excited to have us there because we were happy to be there. We were happy to do it. We were interested in whatever. And normally they do these shows for, they were doing them for like the press who were doing, things that were a little bit anti-gun, like we have shootings in the United States, and so the press was pretty much anti-gun, and so they would be doing these show and tells, and having a less enthusiastic audience for what they were trying to do. And I'm quite sure the speeches were different for those people than they were for us. But anyway, it was pretty interesting. But my mom wanted to be a fiction writer, and so she was a reader and a writer. But other than that, she worked in her garden. She always had flowers in the summertime, always had flowers in the house, but they were always picked from her garden. And yeah. But I don't think she understood knitting for the sake of knitting particularly. Thus the how many sweaters do you need question. You know, I have asked myself how many shawls do I need, because I have a lot of shawls. And I haven't had the urge really to knit a shawl in quite a while, I will say. But yeah. So now I've really been rambling, but now I'm knitting. I can sit here and do this for an hour, shall we? I wonder if Leslie has started back on her spinning, because she can do a lot of spinning today, because I've been talking for 25 minutes. All right, I'm going to stop. Gonna stop. And I can stop now because I'm on my second row after I change, because I do 4 rows and then change and do 4 rows. And the first row of change I have to pay attention, because I have a tendency to just do whatever was the previous row. But I didn't. I'm now on my second. So, all right, I'm gonna go. I've always thought I was going to be I've always thought of myself as a novelist. I've never written anything. I don't even know. I don't even have a story in there that I think I want to write, but I don't know why. I've always in my mind just thought of myself as a novelist. It's a little ridiculous. Anyway, I'm going now. Saturday is our Zoom. That's day after tomorrow. Today's Thursday, right? Saturday is our Zoom. I will see you then. Well, I'll be here tomorrow because that's what I do. Meanwhile, please take good care of yourselves. Please, please stay safe and stay safe.